Family Guy has a long list of plot holes, but calling them plot holes might be generous. These aren't cracks. They're catastrophic sinkholes big enough to swallow Quahog, the Pawtucket Brewery, and probably Meg.
People are gonna miss me when I'm...
If we're lucky, today we're ranking all the biggest Family Guy plot holes from worst to best. And yes, worst to best means the plot holes that make the least sense go first. And the ones that are actually funny because of how broken they are get saved for later.
Wait a second, you were born in 1948?
Yeah.
You're 61 years old?
Yes, sir.
Think of it like ranking Peter's injuries. Some are bad, some are worse, and some are so absurd you can't help but admire the commitment to chaos. Let's start with the plot hole so massive it deserves its own FEMA budget, the Griffin house geography. Where is anything in this house? The kitchen window sometimes faces the street, sometimes the backyard, and sometimes a dimension where Stewie is British for no reason. The dining room moves more than Cleveland's house did when it slid down the hill. Sometimes the stairs are on the left, sometimes the right, and occasionally the living room door opens into a location that absolutely shouldn't exist. It's like the house was built by an architect who works exclusively with dice, and the show never explains it, ever. We're just supposed to accept that the house reshapes itself like it's auditioning for Inception. This is easily one of the worst plot holes, or maybe the house is alive and no one talks about it. Honestly, not the craziest explanation on this list, and that leads perfectly into the next one, Joe Swanson's paralysis. I'm using quotes because Family Guy seems to use the word paralysis the same way Peter uses the word diet.
What do you got there, Peter? Rice cakes? Never had one, but somebody told me this is a really good way to start your diet.
Inconsistently and often sarcastically. One episode Joe can't get out of bed without help. The next he's backflipping through windows like an Olympic gymnast hopped up on pre-workout in anger. He wheelchairs himself like a normal guy one week, then outruns criminals, tackles suspects, and builds entire houses in the next. The plot hole here isn't just that Joe's abilities change, it's that they change in ways that contradict the literal entire foundation of his character.
Are you kidding? I've got working legs for the first time in 15 years and I'm gonna use them. I'm walking home.
I'm sorry, Mr. Swanson. Hospital rules. You have to leave in a wheelchair.
You can't be paralyzed and simultaneously break the sound barrier while tackling a mugger at Target.
All right, then.
Pick a lane, or I guess in Joe's case, pick a wheel setting. Coming up next, Brian's age. This man, sorry, dog, has been 7 years old since the Bush administration. The show insists Brian is dog age, but then also treats him like a fully grown adult who smokes cigarettes, drinks wine, writes novels, pays taxes, has human girlfriends, and somehow leases an apartment. One season he's old enough to have regrets, then another season he's young enough that Peter can call him just a dog.
Do not say anything to Lois. You hear me? Bad. Bad dog. So we understand each other?
Yeah, I'll be good. Trust me.
Family Guy wants Brian to age when it's funny, and stay young when it's convenient. The math never adds up. He's either a 50-year-old chain-smoking writer with a midlife crisis or a puppy with opinions on Italian cinema. This one isn't just a plot hole. It's a time loop powered by Chardonnay. And speaking of time, Stewie's intelligence. This is one of the oldest, most chaotic plot holes in the show. Some episodes, Stewie is a literal super genius capable of building time machines, interdimensional portals, mind control devices, and probably an OnlyFans algorithm if he wanted other episodes. He's a full baby who gets distracted by stuffed animals and can't pronounce words correctly. You can't be the child version of Doctor Strange one moment and the Gerber baby the next, and the writers know it. They poke at it constantly. But it never stops being a wild inconsistency that makes absolutely zero sense. Worst part? Everyone's awareness of Stewie's intelligence changes too. Sometimes the family understands him perfectly, sometimes they don't hear him at all, and sometimes they hear him but selectively ignore the fact that he's literally building nuclear-grade equipment in his bedroom. Next we have a plot hole that doesn't just break logic. It straight up suplexes it. Lois's martial arts skills. Lois is a normal mom most of the time, until the plot calls for her to become a lethal killing machine capable of destroying trained fighters, surviving battles, and roundhouse kicking criminals through walls. One episode she's struggling to carry groceries, the next she's beating up professional boxers, and the funniest part is that the show acts like this skill set disappears between episodes. No training, no explanation, no consistency. She can go from, oops, I burned dinner, to, I punched a helicopter out of the sky, without anyone blinking. Lois might be the strongest being in the Family Guy universe, but only when the writers remember she is. Now let's talk about the Griffin finances, or the lack thereof. How much money does this family have? They're broke constantly. Their electricity gets shut off, they struggle to buy groceries, they can't afford repairs, and Peter's job is a blender full of minimum wage nonsense. But then suddenly they can afford a mansion, a private jet, multiple surgeries, a European vacation, and a custom theme park ride, a boat, and experimental medical procedures. They're poor when it's convenient and rich when it's funny. The Griffin family uses money the same way Peter uses logic, rarely and accidentally, and you'd think with all the lawsuits they should have been hit with, they'd be in crippling debt. But somehow that bank account keeps reviving itself like Brian after season 12. Speaking of revivals, nothing screams plot hole louder than character deaths. Family Guy characters die constantly, and then they don't. Some characters stay dead forever, others come back without a single explanation, not even a joke. The show goes from treating death seriously, like with Brian, to treating it like a suggestion, like with James Woods. Are we supposed to believe characters exist in a weird limbo dimension where they return only when the writers feel nostalgic? Probably. And honestly, that's not even the biggest part. The biggest part is that some characters return even when their deaths were major plot points. Imagine dying dramatically only to be back 2 seasons later like, surprise, I just respawned. Now let's address a plot hole that every Family Guy fan has noticed, but the show flat out refuses to fix. How old are Chris and Meg? Sometimes they're high schoolers. Sometimes they act like middle schoolers. Sometimes they have adult responsibilities. Sometimes they can't grasp basic concepts like they're toddlers and oversized bodies. Meg especially fluctuates between 14, 15, 16, and occasionally 18 when a joke requires it. Chris is either a child, a teenager, a grown man, or a giant baby, depending on the scene. Their ages change more than their dignity. And that's saying something. Let's not pretend Peter escapes this. Peter's intelligence, if we can call it that, is a plot hole that deserves its own episode. One season, he can hold a coherent conversation and hold down a job. The next, he's drinking paint, eating rocks, and forgetting how gravity works.
What are you doing?
Lois, to show I'm in touch with what it's like to be African-American, I am going to go to the middle of the town square, get naked, and paint myself brown.
No.
His IQ fluctuates so violently it could cause whiplash. One episode, he outsmarts the entire town. The next, he can't remember how doors function. It's not just inconsistent. It's like the writers spin a wheel labeled on "How dumb is Peter today?" and go from there.
In that case, I'm suing you for sexual harassment.
And here's a good one. The chicken fights. How does Quahog survive these? Peter and Ernie destroy buildings, highways, neighborhoods, airports, factories, sometimes entire cities. And in the next episode, everything is magically rebuilt. No explanation, no acknowledgement, no mention of insurance, no consequences. The town just resets. It's like Quahog is living in a video game where the map reloads every time Peter wakes up. Now let's crack open the next plot hole. And honestly, it might be one of the funniest. How does Quagmire still have a pilot's license?
Oh, God, what am I gonna do?
This man has crashed planes, sexually harassed half the airline industry, endangered passengers, broken every aviation code, and probably invented a few new violations while he was at it. Yet not only does he keep his job, he keeps getting promoted. In the real world, the FAA would have tackled him off the runway by season 4. But in Family Guy, he's trusted with jets like he's Captain America with wings and a libido problem. The plot hole isn't why he still flies. It's why the airline still exists. And while we're on employees who should have been fired, terminated, or launched into the sun, Dr. Hartman arguably the most incompetent doctor in the history of medicine. This man misdiagnoses everything. He treats life-threatening conditions with sarcasm and fear, and the hospital just lets it slide. Every time he's on screen, someone should be suing, yet somehow he's the only doctor in the entire city. If Quahog had Yelp, he would have been buried under 1-star reviews before Brian could open his next bottle of wine. But the show treats him like he's the top medical professional available. Either Quahog is the most desperate town in the world, or healthcare in the Family Guy universe runs on chaos and hope. Next plot hole. Stewie and Brian's time machine. First off, time travel exists. And no one cares. The Griffins are struggling to pay bills. Lois is fighting in underground MMA tournaments. And meanwhile, in the nursery is a fully functional wormhole generator capable of saving the entire world. The time machine can fix world hunger, reverse tragedies, prevent disasters, but they mainly use it to get out of trouble or go on vacations. And that's if the time machine even exists at the moment. Half the time it's destroyed, then miraculously rebuilt, then destroyed again. There's no real timeline, it's just whatever keeps the plot moving. The plot hole isn't time travel. It's the casual attitude toward time travel, like it's a Costco membership. Here's another one, the existence of Jesus.
No one reports real news anymore.
All right, found you. Now it's time to take you down.
The show brings Jesus into the universe as an actual, literal, walking around character, but then randomly, he disappears for seasons at a time. They forget he exists until they need him for an episode where Peter becomes religious, or a Christmas plot goes sideways, or they need a celebrity cameo joke without paying royalties. One episode he has a job, a personality, a social life. Another episode the town acts like religion is completely abstract and theoretical. The show doesn't treat Jesus like a consistent canon character. They treat him like a button they press when they want to parody Christmas specials. And while we're talking about religion, let's talk about the devil. He appears. He disappears. He exists. Then he doesn't. He's married. He's divorced. He runs hell. He loses hell. He's powerful. He's powerless. It changes episode to episode, like the writers forget what lore they've already created. Family Guy's afterlife rules. Make Avengers time travel look well structured. Nothing makes sense. And somehow that's exactly why it stays funny. But one of my personal favorites is this. How is Adam West the mayor and Adam West the actor? They treat Mayor West like an alternate universe version of the real Adam West, but then they make references to the real Adam West filmography. So are they the same? Are they different? Did the mayor have a secret Hollywood past? Is this a multiverse thing? Honestly, it might be the earliest example of a variant long before Marvel started doing it. If Loki watched Family Guy, he'd promote Adam West to a TVA supervisor immediately. It's a plot hole wrapped in an Easter egg wrapped in a fever dream. Now buckle up because this one is insane. Cleveland's voice and timeline continuity.
Hey, is my kid over here? Forget it, false alarm.
Oh, that's funny. That's even more humorous than that joke you told us last night.
Lois, Griffin, I'll find you guilty, and I'll sentence you to pay your roommate back for his dog food. Or whatever dumb this one's about.
Cleveland's voice and timeline continuity. Cleveland leaves the show, gets his own show, comes back, disappears again. And throughout all of this, the timelines don't match. The Cleveland show crosses over with Family Guy, but not consistently. Sometimes Cleveland is in Stool Bend, sometimes he's in Quahog, sometimes both shows reference each other's canon, and sometimes they act like the other show never existed. It's like the writers kept forgetting where they left Cleveland and just assumed he'd wander back eventually. Imagine if your coworker left for 4 years and just suddenly reappeared at the office like nothing happened. That's Cleveland. Moving on, Meg's treatment by her family defies all logic. Sometimes Meg is bullied for jokes. Sometimes she's genuinely abused. Sometimes she's loved and respected. Sometimes she's invisible. And once in a while, she's the responsible, emotionally stable one. The plot hole isn't that the Griffins treat her terribly. It's that the severity changes drastically depending on the tone of the episode. In one story, she's the family punching bag. In another, she's the glue holding the entire group together. You can't be the worst character, and the smartest, and the bullied and the empowered character without breaking continuity. Meg is basically a plot device disguised as a teenager. Let's hit another big one. The Griffin pets. Brian is clearly sentient. He writes books, debates politics, dates humans, and goes through existential crises. Meanwhile, Peter treats him like an average dog whenever it's convenient. Same with other animals. Some talk, some don't. Some wear clothes, some don't. Some have jobs, some bark at mailmen. Family Guy has 2 levels of animal intelligence, normal and Harvard graduate, and they swap characters between tiers whenever it's funny. It's a plot hole, but a very functional one. We're not done with Brian yet, because here's a plot hole that could fill the Pawtucket Dam. Brian dies and returns for absolutely no reason other than outrage control. In Life of Brian, the show kills him. It's emotional, it's dramatic, it's permanent for about 3 weeks. Then they reverse the entire plot using time travel. And while the episode tries to justify it, the continuity never recovers. People grieved. Merch popped off. They introduced a whole new dog, and then Brian just strolled back in like he forgot his keys. Plot-wise, this was a nuclear bomb-sized contradiction that the series never fully cleaned up. Moving on, we have a plot hole big enough to file a missing persons report. Where is Bonnie and Joe's baby? Susie Swanson was born, talked once, became a recurring joke.
Okay, here we go. Hold on, the wheelchair is coming first.
And then basically vanished, completely off the map. No explanation. You can't introduce a baby, give it a whole plot line about its birth, and then delete her like you're cleaning out storage. Susie still appears once in a blue moon in the background, but for a character who should be a huge part of their lives, she's treated like a prop they forgot they owned. Speaking of forgotten characters, what grade is Chris in? He changes schools, he changes classrooms. Sometimes he's in Meg's classes, sometimes he's in Stewie's daycare, sometimes he's in a high school that looks like Harvard for cartoon idiots. If Chris handed the writers his actual transcript, it would just be a blank sheet of paper with a chicken stain on it. Next is a plot hole so massive that physicists should study it. How old is Quagmire? He served in Vietnam, which would make him at minimum in his 60s or 70s, but the show also acts like he's in his 40s. Then he hooks up with women in their 20s, competes athletically with Peter, and still works full-time as a pilot. He's simultaneously 28, 44, and 78. Quagmire isn't human. He's a temporal anomaly. We're approaching the end, so let's hit a classic. Stewie and Brian's selective awareness. Sometimes Brian is the only one who understands Stewie. Sometimes the entire family hears him. Sometimes no one does. Sometimes they respond directly to him. Sometimes they treat him like a babbling toddler. And sometimes Stewie specifically says he's been faking the baby voice. There is no internal logic, it's just chaos wearing a football-shaped head. Alright, let's finish strong with a plot hole that not only breaks continuity, it shatters it into confetti. Peter's job history. This man has worked more careers than there are episodes in the show. He's been a fisherman, factory worker, toy assembler, brewmaster, writer, farmer, superhero, baseball player, jouster, lumberjack, the Pope, Santa. And at one point, basically a pirate. Yet somehow, when the plot resets, he's magically back at the brewery like none of it ever happened, no explanation, no resume, no HR meeting, nothing. He just reappears at work like a glitching NPC. If Peter ever had to actually explain his employment history to a real employer, the interview would end with him being escorted out by security. But the next plot hole is so confusing that even Stewie would need a whiteboard to explain it. The Griffin's neighbors. How many do they have? Hard to say. Their street layout changes every episode. Sometimes Cleveland's house is on the left, sometimes it's on the right, sometimes Mort lives next door, sometimes he's across town. Even the drunken clam moves around like it's trying to avoid paying property taxes. Family Guy geography is less of a location and more of a vague suggestion. If Google Maps tried to chart Quahog, the app would crash. Next up is one of the funniest inconsistencies in the entire show, Herbert. Sometimes the family interacts with him like he's a harmless old man. Other times they acknowledge he's deeply creepy. Stewie is fully aware he's being stalked, but the rest of the town seems to forget Herbert exists until the plot needs him. He lives in a fully separate universe, one where the creepiest man alive somehow exists without ever being arrested or confronted. The plot hole isn't his behavior. It's everyone else pretending they don't notice. Let's also address a major one. Quahog's destruction. The town has been blown up, flooded, meteor-struck, destroyed by chicken fights, time-traveled out of existence, nuked, overrun by clones, and at one point replaced by Amish people. But every time, with zero explanation, the town snaps back to normal. No cleanup, no trauma, and no rebuilding arcs. Just instant structural resurrection. Quahog has the healing powers of Wolverine and the memory of a goldfish. And now, one of the most unhinged plot holes of all time. Where are Lois's parents when she's kidnapped, hospitalized, almost killed, or doing anything insane? They appear when the plot needs a rich, angry New England couple, then vanish like they're allergic to screen time. Lois can get into a fistfight with a kangaroo on live TV, and her parents won't show up. But mention inheritance or fancy dinner parties, and suddenly they spawn into the episode like DLC characters. And now, saving one of the best for last, the show's relationship with continuity itself. Family Guy doesn't just break continuity. It treats continuity like a neighbor Peter accidentally hit with his car. Inconvenient, ignorable, and probably fine after a few days. Characters remember past events only when the joke requires it. Major life changes evaporate without explanation. Babies talk, dogs write novels, time travel exists, and the residents of Quahog live inside a reality where only the funniest outcome is canon. And that's why, in a weird way, the biggest plot hole in Family Guy is also what makes it work. Because here's the truth. The show isn't trying to be consistent. It's trying to be funny. Family Guy is a cartoon living inside a cartoon logic bubble. It obeys the rule of comedy, not canon. And the more the show breaks its own universe, the more iconic the universe becomes. So the final best plot hole, the one that ranks above all the others, is the fact that Family Guy can erase, rewrite, destroy, rebuild, and reinvent anything at any time. And somehow fans love it even more for that exact reason. If the show ever fixed these plot holes, it wouldn't be Family Guy anymore. It would just be a normal sitcom. And nobody wants to see Peter Griffin living a logically consistent life. The chaos is the point. The contradictions are the charm. The broken timeline is the punchline. And the plot holes, they're the foundation of the whole universe. And that's why in Family Guy, the worst plot holes are the best ones. because they're the reason the show keeps getting funnier, stranger, and more absolutely unhinged every season.